Hey everybody, Gil here with Sailing Vessel Dream Chaser, and in today's episode I'm going to do a bit of a tap test. We have the rest of the Teak deck pulled up. I finally got all the screws out of the starboard side of the deck, and as I was going along I noticed a couple of spaces that had a very dead sort of thud sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show how we do a tap test, and I believe I have some either delamination or potentially some core rot. So I'm going to be doing a test and validating whether or not that's the case. In a previous episode, you might have remembered I did a couple of 2-inch holes in the top layer of skin to see what the core looked like. And at the time, I truly believed the core was actually a hard wood. Now, I did that on the port side of the boat, but I'm going to do it on the starboard side where I found this soft spot. This soft spot in the deck, or this place where it has a thud, happens to be right above a bulkhead that I can tell had been repaired. From down below, I can see where somebody had scarfed this wall and re-epoxied and fiberglassed over it. So this is going to be interesting, and hopefully it'll be educational for anybody watching. It's going to be my first time doing it, so we'll learn it together. All right, so we're going to do a tap test here, and you'll hear this, how it's solid. And then it goes to a thud, and I can even see the deck vibrating. So this is definitely, it feels either delaminated or rotted. So we're going to cut an access hole and see what we get here. It's about the size of the hole we're going to dig. I just adjust this a little bit in.
Be careful, because remember that sandpaper accident?
I do remember that. I will be very careful. All right, we have that section there, and we're going to try and see what we can do here. So what I'm doing is I'm just using a screwdriver here to see if I got all the way through the top layer of fiberglass. Because the surface is so uneven, there were a few places where I couldn't tell if I'd gone all the way through it or not. Honestly, didn't quite feel like it, so I'm checking that now. Some parts of it look fairly solid, other parts don't.
So they can go around to all of them.
Whew, that is wet. Wow. Well, I don't know if you guys can see this, but definitely delaminated. I can stick my screwdriver underneath here, so that part's come loose. A little bit over here, not quite as bad.
Let's go in there to get a candy, and then...
The big question is, what in the hell is this core?
All right, you good?
There's small pieces of wood. Like, there's a piece. I don't think that's balsa, though.
Damn, it's thick.
Yeah, don't step on this. This is the inner ceilings. You'll go right through.
A lot thicker than I thought it would.
Well, I was expecting at least 3/4 or 1/2 inch, so that's good. I'm glad it's thick. I'm disappointed that it's quite rotted, or wet, I should say. It's not rotted, it's wet. Actually, there's actually water underneath here. So if there's anybody that thinks they know what this kind of wood is, I'd be really interested to know. It is quarter sawn, small pieces. I mean, at least in this section I have, there's a piece here, there's a piece there, a piece there. This piece is that large. This one's at least this large. Don't know how much further it goes. So I don't know if this is just extra spare wood that they just cut and sort of patchworked in here. I've heard of them using scrap pieces of plywood in some of the Taiwanese shipyards back in the 70s and 80s, but this doesn't appear to be a soft wood. You know? The good news is, while it happens to be moist, and it is absolutely delaminated from where the top piece was not stuck to it and the bottom piece wasn't stuck to it from moisture, certainly, because this wood was wet between here. There is some spots that are soft. I mean, you saw this one piece up here on the, I'm gonna flip this part over. This is the piece that's attached here, and this one is absolutely wet. There's without a doubt wet and even soft, I would say. But they're not all this way. So the question becomes, is that because of some screws that were through here that were leaking real bad? I don't know if you can see that water coming in that wood. So clearly this piece has had a lot of water intrusion. You can see how delaminated it is from this. So, yeah, I'd say this one's rotted for sure. I'm just going to lay these pieces back in here because I'm not going to do this patch tonight. I wanted to do exploratory holes here to see what was going on. But without a doubt, I have some core issues here that need to be addressed. I was hoping to be pleasantly surprised in here, but my realism side also realized that that was not likely.
I done with this. I want the rubber.
Yeah? Is that a pony with wings?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like playing on that mat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Is your hair getting in your face? Boy, you're all wet and sticky from those bubbles, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sugar Park's right across the way from us. Yeah, he's gonna turn right in there. He drives good. You wanna watch him pull in there?
Mm-hmm.
We can sit right here and watch. Ain't he a good driver?
Mm-hmm. One day I was a driver.
Who's a better boat captain, him or Grandpa?
Him.
I think it might be him, huh?
Mm-hmm. And I want to say hi to him.
Yeah?
When yesterday I saw my friends yesterday. Oops. He just crashed.
He didn't crash. I'd love to know if somebody knows what kind of wood this is. Yeah, sweetie.
Can you turn on the video?
Yeah, I'm recording right now. Do you want me to record you?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Stay. All right. Would you like to say something?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to say?
Pony.
You want to say pony?
Say Pony Alexa.
Pony D'Alexa. Okay. Do you want to tell everybody what your nickname is? What's your nickname?
Stop.
Swab?
McKinley.
McKinley's your name. What's your nickname?
McKinley.
Yeah, it is McKinley, isn't it? It's been 2 days since we cut the exploratory hole in the top of the deck, and I definitely had some wet wood in there and it was delaminated. If I'm going to go do this patch, I just figured it makes sense to get rid of it all at once and fix it all at one time. I don't know how it is at your place, but at ours, if we're going to do a new job, a lot of times it means we need a new tool. So after using my my old circular saw that had a lot of wobble to it, went ahead and decided to go ahead and get a cordless one that works off of the M18 batteries, Milwaukee drills and whatnot that I've already have. So away we go. Let's get this thing unboxed. I'm kind of excited about it. A new toy is always fun. We also went ahead and got a good blade for this. I don't want to use a really cheap one. I don't want to use a framing one, so I got a 40 tooth nail on a 6.5 inch blade. That ought to be good. That actually sounds really slow. It'll be interesting to see how well that cuts. I have a feeling it's not going to do great. I want this to be something that won't come out easily, but I'm afraid that's not going to be the case. It's going to likely come out pretty easily. Yeah, definitely getting a little tighter right here, so this isn't nearly as separated as it is on the other section. Old giant screw. You wonder why things leak through the deck. You know, here we go. There's a 2-inch long screw. Just no idea what it's even for. It's rusty. All right, folks, this is a, well, there's another one of those. Oh, that's not even a screw. Look at that. Here's a great example of where things go just completely wrong. I don't know if you can see this. I'll zoom into this when I'm doing the editing, but this is a screw hole, but that's not a screw. This is the crap that went between the teak deck fill, and somebody just pumped a bunch of that stuff down in there to fill whatever the hole was where they decided not to put a screw down. Well, there we go. What the actual core looks like. It's interesting. It's just little pieces about 8 to 12 inches long laid all in here. And all I can think is they probably did that because it allowed them to get a bit of a contour with the deck. And frankly, use some scrap and save some money. But you can see what this looks like. Now, here's where I said you can tell where the old plumbing lines used to go down. I suspect that's what these are. That feels like epoxy, so my guess is that was a hole that went down below and was where the gas line went through. Not sure what this one was specifically. It could have been a vent pipe for, could have been a vent for a heater or something like that. Stovepipe, who knows? That one looks like it's actually a piece of wood that was put in that one, where this one's epoxy. So, I still have some more delamination coming this direction, but this is not horrible. Well, this part isn't great. I'm actually looking right down. That light you see, actually the cushion down below, that's not great. That's that giant hole that had nothing but that black caulking crap in it. And because they just patched that with a stupid piece of caulk instead of doing it right, you know, this wood right here around it, where that water was intruding right through the deck that whole time, is all soft. But I'll show you where I mentioned that this epoxy is. When I look at the piece of fiberglass that I peeled up off of there, you can see those white lines on that too. And that's because, again, it was all attached, right? What you heard cracking as I pulled this up was breaking essentially those pieces off of there. Those couple of patches were, again, you can see, here's where that was patched. It was initially a hole right through the deck and was patched with, with epoxy, and then here's that piece of wood that was, looks like it was just plywood that was put on there, and I pulled the top layer of plywood off. It's still stuck to that. Now here you can start to see this now. You see these, you see the ridge right there? That's where that fiberglass epoxy was running down into the, in between those boards. A lot of you may be wondering why I wouldn't go in here with a marine grade plywood or even one of the laminate type materials. They have essentially non-rotting plastic wood. Think of like starboard or something like that. For non-boaters that happen to be looking at it, it's almost the equivalent of what that white plastic cutting board looks like you buy at the kitchen store. But boaters tend to like it because it doesn't rot, it's impervious to bugs or termites or any other kind of wood. And the other thing is it's protected from UV, right? So you don't have to worry about it degrading. But when I think about this, right, I have an entire deck here and I'm not replacing the entire deck. I'm only replacing a section. And I don't think I have to go that crazy. Frankly, if I put those big pieces of board in here, I wouldn't be able to get the contour of the deck. And this deck does contour down. It goes a little lower on the sides. It also rakes up at the bow. If I did that, I would have to cut them in small sections anyway. So frankly, I like the idea of using wood like this. But instead of using plywood, which is even more susceptible to any kind of water damage, I'm going to go ahead and use hardwood, right? So I'm not sure if it's going to be mahogany yet, but it's likely going to be mahogany or walnut or some kind of a hard, tight-grained wood. And when I cut them in these small pieces, it'll let me put them all together with a small gap between them and let that epoxy flow into them, essentially turning that into one gigantic piece of wood. So join us in the next video when we pull out all these old pieces, we cut new pieces, we put them down in there, and we start to put some epoxy down on this deck. Hey everybody, thanks for watching, and please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or even Tumblr. Please take a moment and go over to our website at svdreamchaser.com to download free resources for cruising and how-to projects. Get your thumbs and mouses ready. We also have a couple of links right on the screen for some other playlists and videos that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks for watching, fellow dreamers.